let's start with a nice little patch. Before we do that, actually, I'm going to take the chance to talk about a module or instrument, actually, that I mean, when do I ever get the chance to talk about my modules? I think we're definitely going to get to Chrono Trigger. The question is, how long will we play? Oh, right, my hands here. So we are using the Benjolin. Look at this nerd. Look at you, nerd, Sparky. Glad you showed up. I'm going to do a bit with the Benjolin today, which is a module that I'm super excited about, that I've been having for a long time. It wasn't one of the reasons why I bought it, that it also had the word Ben in it, but hey, it's kind of fun. But also, before we actually start with the patch, again, the patch that we are going to do today is pretty simple compared to the other ones we did in the streams. So it won't take that much time. So I'll give us time to actually talk a bit about this instrument, which was developed by the late Rob Hordyke. And this is the V2, which has some updates. I think it's exclusively after later audio thing. I think they partnered with Hordyke while he was still alive for these updates. But there are many, many versions of the Benjolin out there. I'm going to only quickly go over how it works and what you can do with it, and then what I do with it before we go into a patch where I use it in a way that I've super rarely used. And that's what gets me excited. Okay. Let's get this thing on. You could see this has a lot of outputs, by the way. So we will just go through it pretty quickly. It's not a super deep dive. You can talk about this instrument for hours. But basically, it's a 4-part module. You have 2 oscillators that are the exact same, except for one thing that I'm going to get to later. They can go into LFO rate, and they have both a triangle and a pulse output. Let me just start getting something in here so we can hear something. Okay, let me know how the audio level is. I probably should also hear something. That would be nice. Line in. Monitor and output. Nope. Wait a second. Haven't I used this scene before? Oh, it's just super low, right? Yeah, okay, it's just super low. That makes sense. So you can hear, since there's pretty much nothing but rumbling going on now. At 12 o'clock, you can barely see it. I'm sorry for the camera perspective. This is just meant for the patch later on. At 12 o'clock, this is almost LFO rate already. But yeah, you have a triangle out, a pulse out. Let me turn that down a bit. I'll talk over it. And that's the same for both oscillators. The second part, which is on the right-hand side, is a filter section. Right? You have a filter with both with 3, not both. What do you say when it's not both? With thrice, I guess. A low pass output, a band pass output, and a high pass output, and you can use all 3 of those at the same time. You have a resonance valve, of course, and this filter is really nice because it doesn't really self-oscillate, but it kind of does. Like, it gets plucky, it gets pingy, but it doesn't produce like a whole pitch while self-oscillating. We're going to get to that though. And then at the very heart is the wrangler. And the wrangler is what makes this instrument what it is. It's basically a shift register that gets fed by the two oscillators. So the values come from oscillator 1, and the oscillator 2 is the internal clock for the wrangler. The wrangler is random stepped voltage, like a shift register usually is. There are two more things. Wrangler sounds dirty. Oh, we're going to wrangle a lot today. Don't you worry, because now we're getting to the fun part. Well, actually, two more things before that. There's also a pulse width modulation out, which is a comparator between the pulse oscillators of oscillator 1 and oscillator 2. And there is an external in, and that's like the main thing for this version 2. So that you can put other signals through the filter section. And there is an attenuator, a crossfade mixer, pretty much between external inputs and the pulse width modulation. That pretty much covers all of the things that are here for now. Now the cool thing is, let's just get the triangle wave from. Let's take the low pass output, because we get the. You can hear the phase modulation now. I have oscillator 2 in like LFO rates, so they don't. The comparator between the two doesn't add up, but it changes the pulse width. Everything in this module cross modulates via normal connections. We have the wrangler again. We can actually also listen to that, which is just plucky stuff now. Right? Because the clock, oscillator 2, is in LFO mode. But if I crank it all the way up, it just becomes like digital stepped noise. Which is kind of cool. And we can apply that to pretty much everything else. The filter has a wrangler poti. Both oscillators have wrangler potis. So, and since the oscillators feed the wrangler, putting the wrangler back into the oscillators creates cross modulation. But that's not all, because you also have CV inputs. These do not track 1 volt per octave, but you do have attenuators. And if nothing's patched to them, they are normaled to the other oscillator. So we can put wrangler on both oscillators a fair amount. And then we can feed the... Jesus. Then we can feed the frequency of oscillator 1 to oscillator 2 and oscillator 2 to oscillator 1, which affects the wrangler, which affects the oscillators again. You will just see, if I crank this up, this will become chaotic so quickly. Oh, we get some... You get some, like, digital, like, arrow noises out of this thing. And of course, we could also use the filter and the resonance. And then wrangle the filter. Yeah, the Benjolin is hard to tame. But we are going to tame it today. At least a little bit. Get rid of that. So that's pretty much just the overview. It's a crazy... Just like a crazy noise and chaos machine. You can... The wrangler has an output. You can use it for other things in your patch. And some people do use it as a volt per octave source, maybe through a quantizer like the bot quartet, to make it an actual like usable 12 note melody, which you can do. I'm going to highlight like 3. Let me think about that for a second. Yeah, 3. I'm going to highlight, before we actually start with the patch, 3 ways that I usually use the Benjolin. 2 of those are pretty common. I feel like one's not that common, but I do use it quite a bit. And the first thing, I'm not going to demonstrate now. It should be obvious to people who have like knowledge about synthesizers. This thing is a crazy modulation source, right? You get 2 triangle outputs, you get the Wrangler output, and you get an XOR output, which gives you random gates between the 2 oscillators. You get the pulses, which can act as clocks. It's just a crazy amount. And you get, of course, the pulse width modulation, which you can also use. You get a crazy amount of modulation sources that you can internally randomize, or at least chaotify, make more chaotic, so your modulation doesn't become stale. It's super great for that. But it's also fun to make it make sound on its own, right? So what most people do to play the Benjolin is use the pinginess of the filter. I like to do it with the XOR, but it doesn't have to be the XOR. It can just be the internal pulse width modulation. But I'm going to take the XOR out into the external in because it's not normal. Should probably also get the output. And you know what? For demonstration's sake, let's put it over here. This is not the patch I'm going to make, by the way, but it's we can use a few of these cables, so I don't have to repatch everything. So right now there's only faint clicking because that's the XOR output. We can use it to ping the filter. So resonance up. It kind of produces a pitch, but not as strong as like other self-oscillating filters would. And then if we put the Wrangler in, I should probably also give you the right channel, not just the left one. You can make it a little less aggressive by reducing the frequency and the resonance. And this is what a lot of people do with the Benjolin. Get just these nice plucky things. The Wrangler on the filter pretty much makes the melody. And then you just throw some reverb on it. Not counting the VCA or the output module, that's a 2-module patch. And I haven't even played around with a reverb. That's just like everything on 12. Let me get one of these. So this is something that I like to do. That's something that a lot of people do. And I think it is kind of fun. The other thing I like to do, let's get over the reverb. And put this out. Legally distinct astral plane. Yeah, it's... Can you even say astral plane? Is it not... Well, it's probably not copyright holded by like Wizards of the Coast, but they do own so much. It's kind of bullshit, you know, right? But that's immediately a cool thing to do. And I have used that before. Not like a Beholder, yeah, or an Illithid. which is a shame. Fun fact, later on we're going to listen to the Pathfinder music that I made for my Pathfinder campaign. And Pathfinder is a system that was built on D&D originally, but when Wizard of the Coast freaked out again, of course, as they tend to do, and like changed their licensing model, or the changes that they wanted to do were leaked, Paizo, the makers of Pathfinder, were like, we can't have this anymore. This is just stressful every single time this happens. So they just threw everything out that was covered, that definitely came like distinctly from D&D, and got rid of all the traces to finally cut the ties, which does have some like funny implications for the lore now. For example, Drow, so like the dark elves, they're like distinctly Wizards of the Coast. So Drow are fake news in Pathfinder now. It's part of the story that the person who wrote about the Drow in Pathfinder, I'm not entirely sure. Either he made it up, or it was like serpent folk, which is pretty much the stand-in now, that hypnotized him to disguise what they were doing. But Drows were fake news for several years, and in game the like newspapers came out with like we're like, no, we're not doing that. The Drow, we're sorry, we have to pose a correction. The Drow do not exist. The Underdark does continue to exist, but it's called the Darklands now, and it is quite a bit different, but it does have quite a bit of similarities. You can see where it comes from. Hey, Davey, good to see you. Yeah, this is the pre-Christmas stream that we're doing now. Okay, that's enough pen and paper talk. Let me go back to what I was talking about with this puppy here. Puppy? Yeah, sure. What I like to do with the Benjolin, which is something that I haven't seen, but I think it's a nice little filler thing. I like to use it as a like very simple texture generator. More pen paper talk later, yeah. One nerd, yeah, we can only do one nerd theme at a time. And I'd keep jumping. That's my untreated ADHD. I'm very sorry. As like a simple texture filler. Basically, I treat it as a vinyl simulation, like a vinyl crackle noise simulation. Very easily. I'm taking let me get rid of this first. I'm putting both oscillators in like LFO mode, and then I put noise through it. This is just a filtered noise. It's a white noise that I can low pass filter. So let's put this up. Right, it's just white noise. Let's filter it a bit in the noise module. I'm using the Pico noise for it. Maybe a bit of a resonance, not a lot. It isn't, yeah, I know. I wasn't sure where to put it. Also, it's not my good camera. My good camera is that one, and that's only because I didn't want to switch this up after this segment, I guess. And when we add the Wrangler, just like a little bit to the filter, we can... we get some variance in the cutoff. And then, because this version of the Benjolin has the external input that I'm using now for the noise, and it has a like a crossfader, and not just a switch for the external input and the internal pulse width modulation. I can add a bit of the external, a bit of the pulse width modulation to this sound, and because both oscillators are in LFO mode, it would just be like some little prickly clicking. Right, what you would get on a vinyl. And I use this as a texture filler in a lot of my patches. Just when I feel like I need something to glue it together, or I need something to make it sound like a bit more retro, or a bit like old schooly, I throw this under there a lot. And I think it's fun use of the Benjolin. You could also put reverb on it to mellow it out a bit more. Make it almost sound like raindrops more, like a rainstorm. Yeah. But that's not what we're doing today. We're making something somewhat similar. I actually want to use the Benjolin as the main sound source and not just by pinging the filter. So that leaves me with a few options. I want to use the internal pulse width modulation and the wrangler as a melody source for the patch. So pretty much what we have before we have anything is this. Right? A pulse output, a pulse wave with like a modulating width, because the oscillator 2 is in LFO range. If I put the wrangler in now, we get a melody as a random one, but it's not Western scaled, because the wrangler is just completely random step voltage. And I can't even make it like equal temperament, Western style equal temperament, because the CV inputs of the Benjolin themselves do not take they don't take 1 volt per octave. So I can feed in the triangle wave from oscillator 2 into oscillator 1. And if I do it very, 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 very sparingly, we're going to get like a little bit of a vibrato effect, but a very slow one, since oscillator 2 is so slow. That's already too much. That's so little. We can also use, that's my backup plan, we can clock the wrangler externally. That's also part of the Benjolin V2 only, I think. I don't think that's on the original one. And that frees up oscillator 2 for other things. Now this already does not sound super pretty, but it doesn't have to, because we're making like a sweet little, somewhat disturbing drone, very Christmassy. So first let's filter a bit. This sounds way too harsh. And I think if I remember, I need to put this through a VCA, because the output is a little too hot for the effects aid. Yeah, disturbing Christmas drones. I was thinking about doing something super Christmassy, and then I thought I will. Nah, I did that last time. I did the Carols of the Oscillator last year. Let's do something like this. And this with some reverb. Yeah, that was Christmas last year. We already have like a very disturbing bass now. I'm putting the resonance up on the filter to give us more of like harmonics on top. Like, again, this is like a 2-module patch. Discounting the utilities here, down at the bottom here. And it's already a pretty cool drone. We can do a little bit more. We can do a bit more action. Let's put it through. Oh my god, we're going to fuck this signal up. Let's put it through Tercy Ruiner. Good on me for having so many modules. Yeah, I like having a lot of modules. But I also really like using only a few of them, like restraining myself. Okay. Let's put it before we put it into the reverb. Let's put it through Tercy Ruiner to really just fuck up the signal. That's not as bad as I thought it would be. We get some growls. I don't mind that. I'm going to put a bit of the Wrangler into Oscillator 2, just so we get some variance in the clock, not just the same hit every single time. But if I push it too far, we push Oscillator 2 into audio rate. Sometimes, at least. We'll see when it happens. Well, fine. Let me just do it manually then. And suddenly we just have noise. We got some rumbliness, we got some distortion, we got a nice little drone here. I don't mind this. I so rarely use the Tercy Ruiner. I'm happy that I get to whip it out now. I get to whip it out? Why did I say it like that? The Tercy Ruiner is oftentimes too much for my patches. It's 3 distortion circuits, one after the other. And it's supposed to get really noisy. Please don't whip it out, not while 2 cameras are running. Now yeah, I rarely use the Tercy Ruiner because most of the time it's too much for the music that I make. But hey, today kind of works. Now, the thing is, what do we... Please quote this bit. No! Let's do it. Let's tame it a little bit, at least. We're not just combining two modules that are notoriously hard to tame. Putting a bit of oscillator 1 into oscillator 2, so we get more variance in when the wrangler fires. Maybe just turn oscillator 1 a bit higher, so we don't get super often these super low notes. And we get those almost like air horns. Now what do we put to that? Because I have no idea what that melody is. This is completely chaotic and not at all quantized to equal temperament. So the only thing that I could think is either like sparkly stuff on top or another drone. And I think we're going to do both. And that will be the patch. So something, again, pretty much, don't throw over a camera. In theory, a pretty easy patch. Let's use one of my favorite modules. It's such a shame. I don't see a lot of people talk about Clatter's machines, which is like a really small module manufacturer from Italy. I have 2 of the modules. Well, 3 if I count the expander for one. They're some of my favorite modules. My output module is their Sonora, which I actually put there it is, which is a like pre-panned output module. It has several pre-panned at different stages inputs. So it's a mixer and output module. I'm going to put this also on the farthest ends. Well, maybe on like 2/3 panned. Thanks for that quote. I was waiting for it. And this up there on the very, as far away as I can be, this is the Sibylla with the expander. It's an amazing drone machine. People need to talk about Clatter's machines more. I can't wait to see what they come up with next. I love their modules. Basically, let me put that through. It's different sine waves modulating each other and adding harmonics and subharmonics. I can go through, I think, the harmonics with a rise. Actually, let me... put it to constant mode so you can hear it better. And the fall goes through subharmonics. We can add a sub. Got like a little minor situation here. And we have internal LFOs that fade in and out, modulate the amplitude of the harmonic and subharmonics. Which you can control here. If we want to go really crazy, I can boost the LFOs into audio rate. We can add some white noise when both are high. A little minor situation. Yes. I know what I said. And we can crank a bit of resonance to give us a more full sound. . This also has like some internal grain distribution for delays. I don't really understand how that works. But we're going to put it on. And we can get outputs for the LFOs or the grains. And if we use the grain outputs, I will probably attenuate them because it's pretty untamed this way, but let's just use one grain output to modulate the fall. Let's actually turn it down a little bit, the resonance. And use the other grain to manipulate the rise. We're already like on the space station. This right now is a 1 module patch. Put on a lounge jacket right now. I was wondering why you didn't do trivia 2 days ago. Well, I'm just going to leave you with this while I put on a lounge jacket. I get fuck me. I'm warm already. I do agree that it fits the occasion, but I don't agree with how warm it will be for me. Actually, before we do this, and we have just a bass line, let's try to match the bass pitch of our Benjolin. So it's like this. That's pretty close. I think that's pretty much it. None of these oscillators have a fine tune, by the way, which I do dislike. Put that on the what design principles I would have if I ever made a modular synth, like a Eurorack company. Every oscillator needs a fine tune. It's a hassle to tune these together when they don't have fine tuners. Okay. Since this will drone along and it's supposed to be dissonant, I'm not worrying too much about the rest. But let's see what happens now when we put these back into play. We do get a lot of dissonance. But I don't dislike it. Add some more white noise from the Sibylla. Maybe not that much white noise. Oop. That's wrong. How about this back up? I'm not sure if I want to filter it. That I might filter it still. But I will put it through the monsoon, which is my mutable instruments clouds clone. Is it clouds? It's clouds. First off, we're getting some reverb up in here. And then we play a bit with the grains. Why not? Let's put it full wet, so we hear what we're doing. I actually like it. Fully wet. That's a quote. For people who don't work with, like, music equipment. I don't know why. It's called wet and dry. When you the amount of effect you add. I don't know what sick bastard came up with that. But that's now the terminology we all have to use. Is the wet dry on 12 o'clock? More panning, so we get the grains like farther left and right. Which again, thanks to the Sonora, is only at like 60% left and right. And some internal feedback, sure, why not? This might get out of control pretty quickly. Did you misspell something? The 23rd. That's right, huh? I know what you're doing. I'm going to leave you to your job. We could also pitch the grains. Oh, it was Devember. That's like 2 octaves up. I think somewhere around there is 1 octave. I like that. I like 1 octave more. I have to... Little sidetrack. On my monsoon, fully clockwise, the pitch knob fully clockwise is 2 octaves up. But it should be 9 o'clock, 3 o'clock. That's 1 octave up. But it's ever so slightly lower than that. Stuff like that bothers me. But yeah, we have that. Let's add the Benjolin back in. Dare I say it? This sounds kinda serene. It still has like dissonant moments. But think about how chaotic this thing can sound. Just like the tiny fraction that I showed you in the beginning. Oh my god, we're already 45 minutes in. It always takes way longer than I think. We're almost done. This is a very, very short patch. We're not using a lot of modulation, which seems weird, but I want to use the band pass. Maybe the high pass, we'll see. But I think I want to use the band pass of the Benjolin. Yeah, I know it always takes longer. To add something a bit more on top, I'm going to put it through my hue, which is a multi-effects module that I absolutely adore. And then, because why the fuck not, I'm going to put it through my Pico DSP for a delay. And then into my Z verb, my Pico Z verb for reverb, which is what that module is for. That's why it's called the verb. That's why I talked so long about the Benjolin in the beginning. That's what it is. I'm going to put this at like, thank you Sonora, at like a panning of left and right 30%. Yeah, let's see what we get. We can bit crush this. Maybe not that much. Let's see what the high pass would sound like. High pass is better. But I'm not bit crushing that. I just want this a little on top. Where did I put this, by the way? Interesting. So let's put up the delay first. And then, I don't actually know what reverb algorithm the Z-verb is on, but I'm not gonna mess with it right now. Just set it up. Filter it a bit. Oh, it's one with a delay before as well. I think it's the space station. And turn it a bit more wet, and something I love about the Z-verb is we can fuck up the fidelity of the reverb. Which I think is a combination of bit crushing and sample rate reducing. Hey Coma, good to see you. And if we go really low with the fidelity, we don't get anything. But if we go slightly above that, we get this. Do I just want this? What does it sound with the other Benjolin signal together? I think it doesn't distinguish itself enough from that. I want it to be like a little bit higher. So these are the two Benjolin outputs together. And now we can add back in the Sibylla. Again, I don't think I want too much modulation in this. And this is pretty much done for a nice little drone. Let's use a few things from the Oct. Let's modulate maybe the LFO time of the Sibylla. Very slowly. and also maybe the Underwood, which is the sub oscillator. I love the names on the Sibylla. But a bit faster. And then let's use the fastest LFO, well, the second fastest, to modulate together with the Wrangler. Are you playing Divinity 2? Original Sin 2? Because I know you played 1. It would only make sense to play 2 now. I have played neither of those games yet. I started Original Sin 1 2 times. Haven't gotten far. I will put a pretty fast LFO from Oct onto the filter. I currently won again with another one. Awesome. Onto the filter, together with the Wrangler onto the filter of the Benjolin. Because this has an attenuator for the input. I love that. Every input on every module should have an attenuator. I know it's a space issue, but still. If we crank it up, let's see what it sounds like. That's too much for me. So, to reconstruct. Oh, we can use my little trick to just fill out some noise. I don't know why this noise is coming from here. But we can use a bit of filtered noise into the external input and then just do the opposite of what I usually do, which is mainly external input and a bit of pulse width modulation. Now we're doing the opposite. Filter that before it goes in. Space Odyssey ass horns. Yes, I love it. Space Odyssey was my favorite movie for the longest time. Yeah, the ass horns. So, this is our main Benjolin voice. The low pass filter, main drone. This is the high pass going through a delay, through hue, then a delay, then Z-verb. And this is the Sibylla on top. I don't know where this why this channel is noisy. Oh, I do know why it's noisy. Do you hear the noise? I was wondering where it comes from. I think I know where it comes from. Oh no, it doesn't. Interesting. It's from the hue. Probably because, yeah, I used a lot of sample rate reduction. I thought it was coming from the Terci Ruiner. Now let's put everything together. And as per usual, I will shut up for a bit and we let it play. Just for a tiny amount. Not as long as we usually do. Maybe like 5 to 8 minutes. So we get a little bit of a performance out of this. Just listening to what we did. And there we go. That's the patch. Very, very Christmassy, don't you agree? It sounds so serene. I do like it. I do like a nice, like, spacey, kinda strange, not rooted in equal temperament drone. Like, with a lot of sparkly stuff on top, but that still makes you feel just like that bit uneasy. I really enjoy that. I really enjoy that. It was a fun activity. It was an hour. I shouldn't have talked about the Benjolin so much, but what can I do? I love the Benjolin. So, thank you already for that. That was part one. That was part one of the Christmas stream. It's my current book talking out of me. It really is. I'm reading Solaris by Stanislav Lem for the first time. It's like a sci-fi classic, and I love sci-fi. Oh no, I've never read it. I never came around to it, I guess. And it's pretty creepy. I'm not that far into it. I'm like a third in. It's pretty creepy. Like, I didn't expect it to be that unsettling when I went in. But yeah, that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting, and it's kind of the vibe that I put in here. So yeah, that was part one of the stream.